Hello and welcome to this video on how to access AU apps on a Windows device. In this video, we'll talk about what software is needed, the steps to download the programs. In this video, we are assuming that you have dual mobile set up. We will walk through the steps though to get that set up briefly. We'll talk about how to set up the VMware Horizon client, accessing AU apps, setting up the sharing option of VMware Horizon client. That way you can read and save files from your local machine, as well as export modified datasets off of AU apps onto your local machine and output. We'll also walk through how to launch a program. Now, if you go to CTRL's webpage, edspace.american.edu/ctrl/rs, that's going to bring you to the Research Support Center. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a little section on AU apps. If you click on Apps FAQ, this has a document that has various hyperlinks of all the different setups for AU apps, as well as tips and tricks. Now, all these hyperlinks bring you over towards the ServiceNow area tabs. Let me go ahead and resize this a little bit. So if you need to set up two-factor authentication, you'd want to sign in with your username and password. That'd be your AU username and password. And then click on Submit, and it will walk you through that process. If this is your first time with using Dual Mobile, if you go to Help and Services and type in Dual Security, there's an instructional video that walks you through the process of getting that all set up. You will need a secondary device though. Once you have that set up, depending on what system you're using, either a Mac or a Windows system, you'd click on the corresponding link that will direct you to another service tab or ServiceNow post that details all the steps that you need to take in order to install AU Apps VMware Horizon Client and access the system. There's also a link of how to set up AU apps to read and save on your local machine or USB device. That also takes you to another ServiceNow tab post that walks through that step for Windows and for Mac and how to go about doing that. Now, AU apps does not work with Linux systems, nor does it work with Chrome OS. If you're using a Chrome OS, you can upload or import data into AU apps, but you cannot download, nor can you export the results. If you're using a Chrome device or Linux, and you're a faculty member, consider using an open source software. Or if you're a student, you might want to consider talking to your faculty member about maybe using something like Jamovi or RStudio and R, which can work on any operating system. So what we're first going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to apps.american.edu. I'm going to open this up in a new tab. You're going to go ahead and put in your username. If you're a student, make sure you just have it as @american.edu. Do not use @student.american.edu. I'm going to click on Next. You're going to type in your AU password. And when you see it asks for your dual code, you want to go to your secondary device that you have Dual Mobile installed on. You want to click on where it says the American University, and that's going to give you 6 numbers. You want to take that number and type it in there. Now, if it asks you, once you click on Sign In, if you want to save the password, make sure you click on No. Every time you use the Dual Mobile code, that's going to be a different 6-digit number. Great, so now we have access to the AU apps. These are the apps that we have available on this. If you're looking for Mathematica, MATLAB, or NVivo, our campus license, you can install those on any computer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on SPSS. And actually what we're going to do is where it says Horizon Client with 3 dots, click on the 3 dots, and we're going to launch from Client. So it's going to say, okay, so we're going to look for the app, So to do that, we're going to go ahead and open up a new browser and type in Vmware Horizon Client. And we're using the 5 series. So we're going to go over towards Download VMware Horizon Client. And from this list, we're going to choose that first one, VMware Horizon Client for Windows. We are not going to choose the 10 UWP. We're not going to use that. We're going to use that first one. So go to Downloads. We want to make sure that we are in the 5 series. I'm going to go ahead and download this. So it is 5.4.3. I'm going to go ahead and run this. And now we're just waiting for it to launch so we can go ahead and go through the installation. I'm going to go ahead and click on Agree and Install. Great. Now, if it asks you to restart your system to make configurations, go ahead and click on Restart Now. That is a really important step. Now, what I'm going to go back to doing is I'm going to go back to our SPSS and click on the option and then click on Launch from Client. And if you get this message, click on Yes, that we want to open the VMware Horizon Client 32-bit. That's going to go ahead and start launching the client. Now, once the application has been launched, we're going to go ahead and update the sharing icon system. Okay, so now we have SPSS open. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this screen, and I'm going to move the data editor to this one, that we have an example. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I'm going to switch over to my other monitor to walk you through the steps of being able to have the local drives being read. Okay, so now to read the local machine, what we want to do is we have to go to this up arrow caret here and find the icon with the green and the white cloud. That's the VMware Horizon client. You want to right click on that, and there's an option for sharing. Now what you want to do is under the USB devices, there's nothing connected though, that's okay. For sharing though, we want to make sure that all 4 of these options are checked. So we have to make sure that it's able to share the local files, allow access to removable storage, the local files to unhosted applications, and so forth. This allows us to actually be able to bring data from our local machine to AU apps and vice versa. Make sure it's all stored on our local machine. Click on OK. You only have to set this up once. If you need to access things like the J or K drive, there's also a ServiceNow information on how to do that too, as well as on our FAQ sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to our primary window now. Okay, so now we have things set up. I'm going to minimize all of these. And that's our data set on the desktop. To access it, what you want to do is go to File in SPSS, click on Open in Data. Now when it says desktop, we want to scroll down though, and if it defaults to documents or somewhere else on this PC, this is actually the Azure Cloud virtualization. This is not your local machine. You want to make sure when you scroll down, you're under the Z drive. The Z drive is your local hard drive. So in there, once you click on the Z drive, you click on wherever you have the file stored. I'm going to find our cs.sav file. I'm going to open it. And now we've brought in the dataset on the local machine into SPSS. You know how it says Z drive. If you're not seeing the Z drive, make sure you have the settings for sharing on the Vmware Hardware Client set up correctly. Now what we can do then is we can go ahead and save a copy of this. Let's say we made some changes to it. Go to File, Save As. You want to make sure that you're under the directory under your Z drive. You do not want to store it anywhere else. We're going to go ahead and put today's date. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now if I went ahead and minimize this and move it out of the way a little bit. Oops. Go ahead and close this out. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and move on my desktop. There's now the date stamped one that we have. Let's say that we run an analysis. I'm going to go ahead and get some descriptive statistics. So I'm going to go to Analyze, Descriptives, click on Explore. I'm going to scroll down to GDP PC per capita, put that as our dependent list, and click on OK. Now we have our output results. To get this to be able to save on a local machine, we can either go to File, Save As, and it defaults to the documents. This is not our local machine, so we need to go make sure it's on the Z drive. I'm going to go to Desktop. I'm going to just call this Output 2, and I'm going to save it as a .spv file. We can also export this as either a Word document. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Word RTF. Make sure it's in the Z drive location. If it's not on the Z drive, it's going to store on Azure Cloud, and we will not be able to recover it. I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to say export this as a PDF. So I'll change the type to a PDF. By saving it as a Word or PDF, that allows us access to this outside of AU apps, so we can either copy and paste it or take screenshots of that. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out of the SPSS system. If, let's say, you lose internet connection, as long as it's within 30 minutes of losing internet connection that you restore connection, you'll be back to the same spot where everything was before you left. If it's after 30 minutes, then the Azure Cloud connection terminates and all work is lost. So please make sure that you save frequently. Here's our SPSS output in the raw format. Here it is as a Word doc and as a PDF. It'd be the same process for Stata. And also mention too that If you're using Stata, just like SPSS, you cannot copy and paste it, so you have to export the results. Our FAQs have some more information about that and some tips and tricks for that. Well, this concludes this video on how to use AU apps for a Windows device. I hope this was helpful.